gorgeous people. It's been a while for me since I have chatted with you. I know another video has gone up recently, so it doesn't feel long for you, but it's been a while since I have sat down in this chair to sit and chat with you. And we're moving into the December month. We might already be there by the time this goes live. But I haven't wrapped a video, or my reading, I should say, in 2 months. So today we're going to be talking about all of the books that I read, not only in November, but also in October. That is a long time. And I think there's 12 or 13 books that we're going to be chatting about. So I'm going to do this like rapid fire if I can. And I'm kind of merging things. So we're starting with the vial of both October and November. The first, I am so sorry to say, is The Inmate by Freida McFadden. Let me tell you, I didn't like this book. This follows a woman who moves back to her old town after she had been nearly murdered there as a teen, very close to losing her life. Practically all of the friends around her did lose their lives on that fateful night, except her. She has just moved back. She spent the last 10 years away. I think she moved to a city or something. She had a child as a single mom, and now she's moved back after her parents have passed, and she's moved into their house. And she starts working at a prison, and she's working there as a nurse, and she stumbles across the very man that nearly murdered her all those years ago. This was ridiculous. Let me tell you, if I could have punched a character in the face, this character would have been the one I would have chosen. I disliked this woman so much. She put her son in the middle of danger so often. She was so gullible so often that I really wanted to strangle her. I was annoyed by her the entire time. We've got kind of like love triangle vibes going on here as well. And she's swooning over all of these men and how gorgeous they are. And you guys know me, no heart. I find all of that ridiculous. And I can't imagine that you talk about men the same way as you would as a teenager when you have a son that you're raising. I just don't understand it. I found it so juvenile that it feels like she had no growth between the time that she was a teenager and this awful thing happened to her, and then whatever, she's 26 now. Now, I wasn't like the most mature 26-year-old, I wouldn't say. However, I didn't also have to grow up really fast, and all of the circumstances would have led her to be a different character, and I just found her so annoying. I don't recommend reading that one. Definitely start somewhere else with Freida McFadden, like Never Lies, really fun. Even The Housemaid, I think that's what it's called. That was really fun. But not The Inmate, not to me. The other book that I was shocked that I didn't enjoy is Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. Now, you guys know I adore Angie Kim. I really loved her writing. This is her second book. It just didn't work for me. This follows a family in which the father of the family does not return from an outing with his son. Now, his son is nonverbal. He is not able to communicate verbally with people. And so the son comes home after, I guess, like an outing, a walk or something along those lines, and he has blood on him, and he's extremely upset, but he can't communicate what happened to the father. And so we follow this family. In particularly, we're following the daughter, the sister, in this family, and she is extremely logical, but also annoyingly combative. So if someone says 2 + 2 is 4, she will find a way to make fun of them for saying that, or completely disagree with them just for the sake of it. Now, I don't believe that this character is older. I think she's still going through university in this book. I could be wrong. This was a long time that I read this, but I found this character to be so annoying. Like, you know, those people in your life where you could literally say anything and they will find a reason to say the opposite for, it seems like, no good reason except maybe angst. That's how it felt in this book, and it felt like a very long book. I think this book could have been cut 100 pages. Now Angie Kim does explore this medical treatment that now Angie Kim does explore this man who has this illness in which he is nonverbal, and it is explored very interestingly, but it felt like that became almost like the entire story, it felt like, as opposed to this disappearance. The disappearance is always in the background of the story, but just took center stage in a way that I found didn't work to move the story along. So I wouldn't recommend that one, sadly. Okay, now we're moving to the Tolerable. And you know, the first book on this, I feel almost bad. It's Maisie Dobbs, the first book in the Maisie Dobbs series. And it follows a woman in and just after World War I. She is, we meet her when she is essentially a detective. That is what she does for a living. And people come to her for advice, they pay her, but they always seem to be very surprised that she's a woman. And so it's definitely like a feminist take for sure, historical fiction for sure, but we do go back in time. I did enjoy this, and this is why I'm starting to feel like this shouldn't have been on the Tolerable list and maybe more on the Splendid list. In any case, we're talking about it now. So we go back in time and find out how Maisie Dobbs got to where she was, because she came from very, poorer background. Her mother is dead. She has a father in her life that she cares deeply about, and she is working as a maid for much of her, younger years. And so you follow her rise and how she becomes a detective, which is interesting, and her working on a case. And I really did enjoy that. I didn't love the case that she worked on in this book, which is probably why I gave it more of like a 3-star kind of rating. But I'm already reading the second book. You'll see that in my December TBR if that isn't already up. And I'm liking that one a lot. So that probably should have gone in the Splendid pile. We have Echo. This is a children's book. I listened to this on audio. I was hoping to read something light in the midst of the war. This was read in October, I believe. It was not light. It had a war in it. I don't know what I was expecting. I knew that it was about a kind of magical harmonica, and about all of the children who come across this harmonica and what happens to them in their lives. So there's wartime in here. We follow orphans in an orphanage. We follow a vast variety of characters, and it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. I think at this time, I needed lightness, and I was reaching for a children's book for lightness, and I didn't find it here. I do recommend it, but I don't think I will reread this. Even to Nora, I don't know if this is going to be one of those books. So, Crying in H Mart is next. This has been kind of all over Booktube and Book Talk, and it's a very beloved book, and it is quite sad. It is about a woman who loses her mom, and her mom is And it is about her trying to connect with her Asian culture. Her father is white, her mom is Asian, and she is watching her mom slowly devolve after being diagnosed with cancer, and you follow that experience, but you meet her when she is, you know, crying in H Mart, missing her mom, and also missing a part of herself that she doesn't feel as connected to anymore. I did enjoy this book. I found it kind of bounced around so much in time that sometimes I felt like I was slightly lost, and I wanted the narrative to be slightly more linear. But then again, this is her life, and who am I to say what she should be doing with her own memoir and her own experience of losing her mother. So I feel kind of guilty and uncomfortable ever really rating these things, but if I was to rate my experience reading Crying in H Mart, I would put it in the it was okay kind of book. But again, feel so guilty. Moving on. Next is The Vampires of El Norte. This is historical fiction, and it follows a woman who lives in this small town. She is a wealthier woman, but she's a young woman. And she's kind of in this love situation where she's fallen in love with a man who is much poorer than she is. And so her father has deemed the match like not a match, and essentially said there's no opportunity for these two people to come together. However, they often meet together. And one night when they're meeting together to kiss and just love on one another, they're both attacked by a vampire. She's attacked, she's bitten. He thinks that she has died, and he leaves. He leaves this town that he's grown up in. All the while, she did not die, and their paths do meet once again. I will say, like, I liked some of the descriptions of the vampires. I thought that was really well done. But if I heard the word canter one more time reading this book, I just couldn't stand how often the word canter was used. And it really did lean quite heavily on the romance, I would say. The vampire moments in here were scary a lot of the time, but it leans so much on the romance that it felt like it was taking away from my spooky experience. And I think I read this in October, and I was like, give me all of the scary and less of this lovey-dovey stuff. In any case, it was good. Not as good as her first book, though. The Hacienda, I really liked much more. And that also had romance, but didn't get in the way of me being scared. Next is Shrines of Gaiety by Kate Atkinson. I love Kate Atkinson. This book didn't work as well for me. This follows a woman who is just coming out of jail after she has been in jail for many, many years for essentially crimes like stealing and that kind of thing. And so we follow her. We also follow a detective trying to link together a series of murders of young women who are thrown into a river repeatedly. People are losing their lives, and he's trying to get to the bottom of it. He does hire a woman to kind of go undercover, and you follow her as well. You're following quite a few people in this book, and I did find that slightly confusing. There was just something about the atmosphere of this book that did not hit home to me the way that Kate Atkinson's books usually do. I usually love her atmosphere, and I usually really enjoy all of her characters, and in this book I was not connected to any of the characters. It doesn't mean that usually her characters are always incredible and really people that you were rooting for. Sometimes they are, but sometimes they're it's unclear if they're good or bad. And there was a lot of that in here, but I just didn't feel connected to them the way that I wanted to. So sadly, it didn't work for me the way that I wanted it to. What are you gonna do? Now we're going to move on to The Splendid. And the first up is Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. This was my first Rachel Harrison. It will not be my last. I loved every second of this book. You meet a woman who is invited to go back home to a wedding, to attend a wedding. She is the black sheep of her family. She left the family because she decided that she didn't want to celebrate Satan anymore. She didn't believe in Satan. Her whole family and the place that she grew up, they all were Satanists. Is that the right term? I don't know what it's called. I found this book hilarious. It was really funny. I love it when horror can have humor in it, but still be creepy. It was definitely creepy, but more hilarious, honestly. I was chuckling my way through this. I really liked our main character. You meet her when she's just kind of struggling to get by as a waitress. She hates her waitressing job. And you really understand her character, and you either connect with her or you don't pretty early on. And I just really liked her. And she's kind of grumpy but gorgeous at the same time. Her mom is like she is a horror star. She starred in all of these horror movies throughout her life, and she looks a lot like her mom. And she has a terrible relationship with her mom, and she goes back home and the shenanigans begin. And I just enjoyed every second of it. I want to read all of the Rachel Harrison now. So that was a pleasant surprise. Next is I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Makkai. This was good. I did enjoy it. I really enjoy Rebecca Mackay's writing. In this book, you're following a woman who essentially is a professor and encouraging her students to create podcasts for their work. Now, when she was a child, or a teenager, I should say, she went to a school in which a girl was murdered and someone was tried and put into jail. And now, some years later, she is questioning whether the right person is behind bars, and she's kind of using her students to explore this case. She doesn't full-blown pressure them, but there are moments in this book where the students are like, I'm not sure if this is going to work. I might change to a different topic, a different subject. And she's like, please stick with it, because she is invested. And it explores a lot about how men in positions of power can take advantage of younger women. And it's her exploring that, something that she could not fully understand as a teenager because she was a child in which these situations were going on. And now she's, as an adult woman, also struggling with it in various ways. I don't mean to be, I just don't want to give anything away. And I feel like a lot of plot points that I could give away if I say more than that. I did really enjoy this book. It did seem to just go on and on a little bit, just a little bit too long, but I was listening to it on audio. I don't know if the experience in like paperback would be different, but I enjoyed my audio experience. Oh my goodness. 2 more books here. Strange Sally Diamond is next. I really enjoyed this one. If you enjoyed Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, I feel like this is a much darker, well, maybe not much darker, but it's a different story than that. However, you are connected to Sally in a similar way. So in this book, you meet Sally Diamond putting her father into the garbage. He has told her, when I die, just throw me out with the trash. And so she literally takes him and puts him into an incinerator or something like that in their backyard. And she doesn't understand that she's not supposed to do that. She takes things literally. Sally has gone through a lot in her life. Like, when I say a lot, you discover just the sheer volume of how much this girl survived. I believe when she was 7, she was taken in by her adoptive mother and adoptive father, who were psychologists and actually worked with her before they adopted her. And she doesn't have any memory of what happened to her before the age of 7. And this slowly comes to light over time. Her adoptive father has never told her anything that happened. And after he dies, she's learning about it and coming to terms with it. And at the same time, the world knows everything that happened to her. Because she does something strange, like, you know, try to set her father on fire after he dies and get rid of his body that way, she kind of becomes news. And then when the whole world finds out what happened to her as a child, people are calling her different names than her actual name. She goes by Sally, and I think they're calling her Mary, and she's trying to understand. It was really interesting and such a character study, and that is something that Liz Nugent does incredibly well. This is very different than her other books in the sense that her other books, you're following like really nasty people. And in this book, you really do care about Sally. She's a good person. She's strange. She says things that are strange. She does things that are strange, but she has a good heart, and she's just been through the ringer. So I definitely recommend Strange Sally Diamond. I really liked my experience. Similarly, I loved The September House by Carissa Orlando. I think this was a debut, and my goodness, I will be reading more from her. If I could call this cozy horror, I think I would. This takes place at an old house that is beautiful, and our main character is so tied to the house that even though it's haunted, she's decided to stay. And usually when hauntings start happening, you see terrifying ghosts in the house, you run the other way. Not our main character. She doesn't. Margaret stays, and she's bought this house with her husband Hal, but sadly Hal has just left. He just can't take the house, and so he leaves. She's like, I'm staying. It's okay that our relationship is over. I'm gonna stay. And everything is fine, except every September, the house goes through something in which all of the hauntings goes up, like, to the next level. There is blood dripping down the wall. She is hearing screaming through the night. And so it starts slowly in September. By the end of September, she can't sleep anymore. She can't mop up the blood anymore. It's just too hard to handle. But October 1st hits, it all stops. Everything stops. And, well, not completely. Like, there's still hauntings, but the extent to it really calms down. And so she's right in the midst of September. September is here. And her daughter wants to come home. She's worried about her dad. She hasn't heard from her dad for a while. So she wants to come home. And our main character is like, please don't. But now she has to deal with the house as well as try to hide it all from her daughter. It was funny at times. Again, quite cozy. There's a lot of cups of tea in this book that I enjoyed, and I definitely recommend reading this while drinking a cup of tea. Oh my gosh, are we at the end? Not quite. Not quite. We've got our favorites to still do. So I have 2 favorites. I've got a favorite of October and a favorite of November. So my favorite book of October, and you'll be seeing this again and again and again, is Bright Young Women talked to you guys about this before. I loved this book so very much. Bright young woman follows two women, but the main character that we follow from the get-go is a woman who survived essentially Ted Bundy. He's not named in this book, but you know it's Ted Bundy based on his crimes. She lives in a sorority house. She's like the leader, captain, what do you call? Head of house. And one night a man comes in, Ted comes in, murders some of her sorority sisters, injures many of them, and she sees him as he's walking out. And it is her experience that night, as well as the subsequent nights, subsequent days afterwards, dealing with the police. It takes place in the 70s, so we've got a police force that's really not feminist. Let me just say, they are not a feminist police force. This woman is smart as a whip, like prepping to go and become a lawyer, does become a lawyer later. And they just assume that she knows nothing, which is extremely annoying. And she finds it extremely annoying. So you're dealing with all of that. You're dealing with the trial and everything. You also follow another woman who believes that her dear friend was also killed by Ted Bundy, but surprise, surprise, the police haven't linked them, and she's trying to work with our main character. I want to say Patricia. No, her name is Pamela. They're trying to work together to sort it all out and bring this man down. I loved every second of this book. It's feminist. It is gripping. I literally could not sleep one night because of the beginning, how absolutely terrifying that night was, and the way that it was written. Wow, I loved it. And my November favorite book, I will say I didn't have any 5-star reads in November, but this was really close to a 5-star read. And this is The Family Game by Catherine Steadman. I just loved this. If you are looking for like a holiday creepy book, could not recommend this more. It takes place like Thanksgiving, Christmas, American Thanksgiving, I will say, because Canadians celebrate Thanksgiving much earlier. In October we celebrate. In any case, in this book, we're meeting a woman who has fallen head over heels in love with a very wealthy man. He's wealthy in his own right. He created his own business that's doing incredibly, but he also comes from wealth, a lot of wealth. At the same time, let me just say, she is doing just fine on her own. She is an author. Her book, her last book has like been a bestseller. She's currently writing her second book, and they become engaged. And very soon after they become engaged, she meets his family. They haven't met before because it's kind of not estranged, but he was in no hurry to have them meet. He has this very intimidating family that have kind of, tried to make other girls go away. Like, they're very hard on the women that enter this family. And she does meet them, but this family is very strange. They like to play very strange games at Christmas time. I will say I wasn't sure about this book until the first big game happened. It's called Krampus, and Krampus is, if you don't know, is kind of like a terrifying creature that goes alongside Santa Claus. In any case, there is a game in here that involves Krampus that truly was very scary for me. And the subsequent games in this book were really scary. I will say that she is in a very uncomfortable position, pretty much straight from the get-go. She meets this family. Some of the family is nicer than others. I think she gets along pretty well with the sister. She meets the dad. And the dad is intimidating as hell, and he tries to take her away and goes to a library with her, or the library in their enormous house. And he's like, you know, let's sit down. I know that you're an author. I'm very interested in that. And did you know that I wrote a book too? And he hands her a tape. And on the tape essentially is a confession to murder. And she is not sure what to do with this. And what I found frustrating, I will say, about this book is that I'm a different person than this girl, okay? If this happened to me, well, first of all, would go to the police, but I would also be like, here's the line, you're crossing it. Please stop doing that. No, absolutely not. Don't try to intimidate me. I'm trying to date this guy and I'm nice to him. Don't do that. Anyway, I also would immediately tell my fiance what is going on. I would not, like, his role is to protect you from his family. If your family is crazy, okay, I'll try to hang out, but I'm not going to just do it for nothing. Like, absolutely not. I'm just a different woman. So I found her annoying, but the games were creepy. And like, I did not see the end coming. I really liked the twist. All that was great. Oh my gosh. See, I said, I'm going to be snappy with this review. Nope. It's like 30 minutes that I somehow have to edit. Wish me luck. Those are all the books that I read in October and November. Whew. I hope that you had a cup of tea or something while watching this. Let me know in the comments below. What's the best book that you read in October and November? I'd love to know what they were. And I'll talk with you soon. Bye, guys.